Welcome to Sinister Empires. Tonight, we step into the shadowed halls of medieval courts, where power, blood, and cruelty intertwined. Across Europe and the Near East, kings and warlords viewed enemy princesses not as humans, but as pawns in a game of political chess. Their fates were sealed by ambition, fear, and the darkest impulses of absolute power. What you're about to hear is not for the faint of heart. From imprisonment in secret dungeons to rituals of humiliation and terror, these were the horrors that history almost forgot, or dared not speak of. Join us as we uncover what medieval kings did to enemy princesses, deeds so brutal that they were beyond human imagination. In the year 1096, during the height of the First Crusade, a castle in Levant fell to a coalition of European knights. Within its stone walls lived princesses of noble blood, their futures once secured by alliances and lineage. But when the castle gates were breached, their lives became a currency of power. One young princess, named Avellini, daughter of a local lord, had been raised in luxury and innocence. She had spent her days learning etiquette, languages, and the history of her people. Yet when the knights stormed the fortress, she was torn from her family and her home. It was common practice for victorious kings to hold captured noble women as leverage. They were used to negotiate ransoms, force political concessions, or even seal new alliances through coerced marriages. But some rulers, driven by sadism or paranoia, went far beyond mere bargaining. Avellini was led into a dark chamber, its walls blackened by smoke and neglect. Here, she learned the first truth of royal captivity. Obedience was mandatory. Resistance was punished. For some, punishment was physical, inflicted with whips or stocks. For others, it was psychological, forced to witness the executions of their kin, or subjected to isolation so profound it broke even the strongest mind. Across Europe, tales emerged of princesses confined to towers where sunlight never touched them. These towers were often in remote castles or monastic enclosures, where food was scarce, and the only company came from guards sworn to cruelty. Some chroniclers recorded how princesses were deliberately kept ignorant of the outside world, so that when they were eventually married or handed to a rival, they could be molded into obedient instruments of state. One story from France tells of Princess Eleanor, whose beauty rivaled the sun. When her father rebelled against the French king, she was captured and locked in a windowless chamber for 6 years. During that time, she was denied books, music, and human conversation. By the time she was allowed to leave, she had forgotten her own name, her language reduced to whispers, her will crushed under years of relentless psychological torment. Medieval kings were rarely content with mere confinement. Some forced princesses into ritualized humiliation, parading them in public as trophies, stripping them of their dignity to assert dominance over defeated houses. Others employed darker methods. Secret chambers where only the screams of their victims could be heard, chambers where girls were starved, whipped, or subjected to mock executions, all to demonstrate the ruler's absolute power. These were the crown's hidden atrocities. While history remembers kings as warriors or diplomats, the suffering of the women they captured remained unrecorded, whispered only in the margins of chronicles, or erased altogether. By the 13th century, such practices had become institutionalized. Kings and lords of Europe viewed enemy princesses as both prize and threat. Some chroniclers wrote that keeping them alive was itself a form of control. Their beauty and nobility could inspire rebellion if left free, but when imprisoned, they became symbols of the victor's supremacy. In England, Princess Matilda Brittany was captured during a border war. The king who held her sought to marry her off to one of his loyal knights, but first, he required obedience beyond her will. She was subjected to isolation, forced to wear coarse garments, and denied all comforts. At night, servants would whisper threats in her ears, reminding her that her family could be executed if she disobeyed. Meanwhile, in the Holy Roman Empire, a captured princess named Isolde endured ritualized degradation. Chroniclers recount a ceremony where she was forced to kneel before the king in a hall lit only by torches. Her hair was shorn, her robes torn, and a crown of iron placed upon her head, not as a symbol of honor, but of humiliation. She was presented as the spoils of conquest, a living lesson to those who opposed the crown. Some kings resorted to psychological games of terror. Letters would arrive at enemy castles, detailing the sufferings of the captive princess, threatening worse if rebellions continued. The goal was fear, absolute and unrelenting. In many cases, these tactics were more effective than armies, because the captives became instruments of intimidation. Yet not all princesses succumbed quietly. Stories survive of girls who resisted, refusing to speak, to eat, or to obey. Their captors often reacted with greater cruelty, as defiance challenged a narrative of total power. One princess reportedly endured 2 years of solitary confinement, emerging so physically diminished that her own guards did not recognize her. Still, her mind remained unbroken, a testament to resilience in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Beyond physical suffering, medieval rulers also understood the power of sexual domination as a weapon. Many chronicles hint at coerced marriages or the threat of forced unions with unsavory suitors, often orchestrated to humiliate or destabilize rival dynasties. A princess's virtue was a political tool, her autonomy stripped not only for revenge, but to signal the total subjugation of her lineage. This was the double-edged cage of nobility. To be royal was to live with wealth and influence, but capture meant that every privilege could be turned into a weapon against you. In the hands of medieval kings, beauty, intelligence, and rank became levers of terror, twisting human lives to the demands of power and ambition. By the late Middle Ages, accounts of unspeakable atrocities reached even chroniclers in distant lands. In Eastern Europe, captured princesses were sometimes kept alive as pawns in dynastic wars for decades, their lives extended only to extract political concessions. Torture, starvation, and public humiliation were common, often justified by religion, honor, or law. One chilling example comes from the Iberian Peninsula, where a princess named Beatrice was seized during a siege. Her captors confined her to a small tower above a river, where the only light came through narrow slits. She was allowed no visitors, no letters, no books. Months turned into years, and in her cell, she learned nothing but despair. When she was finally forced to marry a nobleman from her captor's court, she walked into the ceremony not as a bride, but as a hollowed shell of her former self. In some cases, kings would execute enemy princesses in secret, ensuring that no chronicler could record their deaths. Bodies were disposed of discreetly, leaving only whispered rumors and fear as proof. Such acts were designed to terrorize rival houses, demonstrating that no rank could shield one from total annihilation. And yet, even in the darkest of histories, there are moments of defiance. Princesses who survived captivity sometimes returned to influence the courts, using their experiences as leverage. Some chroniclers recount women who remembered every insult, every cruelty, and used that memory to reshape alliances and policies once they regained freedom. Their suffering became a tool, their pain a hidden form of power. Ultimately, the story of medieval kings and enemy princesses is a story of cruelty, strategy, and human endurance. The castles, towers, and dungeons may have crumbled, but the echoes of terror remain in the margins of history. These women were not mere victims. They were witnesses, survivors, and sometimes silent agents of revenge and diplomacy. History often forgets them, focusing on kings and battles, but the reality is clear. The lives of these princesses were manipulated, shattered, and weaponized in ways that defy human imagination. Thank you for joining us in this dark journey through medieval history. The horrors we've explored tonight remind us that power, unchecked, can corrupt absolutely, and that the lives of the innocent often hang in the balance. Fire History was written by the victors. We reveal what they tried to erase. Movie Camera subscribe for weekly dark history stories, medieval courts, forbidden power, and secrets.